I'm Denise.
She's a non-fiction editor. And I'm Louise.
She's a fiction editor. And together,
we're the Editing Podcast.
Hello, and welcome back to the Editing Podcast. So this week, we're thrilled to welcome back two guests who appeared on the show just a couple of weeks ago when they shared loads of wisdom about editorial networking.
That's right. Brittany Dowdle and Linda Ruggeri are back. Now, during their last visit, we talked about some of the tips they discussed in their book, Networking for Freelance Editors. And that got us thinking, because writing a book is a massive endeavour. And we wanted to find out more about the process and what the experience was like for them. So welcome back, both of you.
Thank you. We're so excited to be here again.
Thank you for having us back.
Oh, it's great to have you here again.
Yeah,
so let's dive in straight away. Let's talk about the book. So as Louise said, it's called Networking for Freelance Editors. So who's this book for? I mean, I know it's for freelance editors because, you know the title and everything, but who within that community are you talking to?
So our main focus is on new editors and editors who are new to freelancing. We kind of think of the book as a networking 101, but we also think that it can help veteran editors who want to take a fresh look at their network and use maybe a more intentional approach to how to build that network.
Yeah, definitely. And I'm going to hop in and say also that I've discovered, and this is an indirect effect, I think, of our book from what we thought our target audience was, but we also have a lot of teachers who are teaching courses or editing programs who have been introducing, their students to the editing world and using the book as a tool to get them started on their own freelance career.
Oh, that's great.
Yeah,
lovely.
We weren't expecting that, but it's happening. And I think one of the reasons is that in the book, we really question these common assumptions that we all have about how networking works. And Brittany and I have been trying to challenge the readers to approach networking in a more collaborative way, really learning how to take practical networking steps, as well as, trying to figure out what mindset is the most effective for you. So we really think, it's a book for editors. And when we mean editors, we're really talking about editors, fact checkers, proofreaders, people that are dealing with permissions, assistant editors, and sometimes even writers, I think.
Wordy people. That's who it's for, wordy people. So can we talk about why you went down the route of creating a book? Because it's a massive undertaking. I know, because I've done it and swore I'd never do it again until I did. And then I swore I'd never do it again until I did. It's a big investment and it requires commitment. So yeah, why did you go down the route of creating a full-blown book?
I think that the main reason we put these ideas together into a book form was because, one, we had a lot to say, but we wanted to do it in a structured, practical way. So we wanted to show these networking steps and walk people through them, but also really help people grasp sort of the mindful approach. And I think that you've got to pair those two aspects up to make sure your mindset is right and your expectations are right, and then do the actual work. So we wanted to help other editors overcome maybe their anxiety about delving into what networking really is, and then show them how to create an actionable networking plan. And it's specifically a workbook as opposed to just a book. And part of the reason for that is that worksheets are really important. Linda and I think, just love worksheets, as well as note taking. We like having those worksheets. And in our mastermind group, we also use worksheets some. But worksheets are an important part of the book because we wanted to help people do the actual work and be able to come away with like tangible guides that they could revisit and learn from. Because I think, as Linda has probably said before, your networking plan is something that is continually evolving. Your network has to evolve because you're probably not stationary and static in your work or in what you want for your work. So we decided to make these tangible guides, and then we also incidentally made the worksheets available for free on our website. So you can just, go there, you can print them out, you can experiment a bit. And that really helps me is, trying to visualize different ways of maybe tackling the same problem. So you can take one worksheet and print it off 3 times and, really structure, okay, what if I go about it this way? Or what if I go about it that way? And then you can also post them at your desk and, for inspiration or just as a reminder to kind of hold yourself accountable.
Yeah, I was just going to say we'll put a link on, if it's okay, we could put a link to Brittany's website. Is that all right?
Yeah, they're actually on, so we have a joint website just dedicated to the book. It's networkingforeditors.com. And we've got a bunch of resources, but the worksheets are one of the main ones there.
Right, we'll stick a link to that in the show notes. That's
we will
brilliant.
Do. Yeah, excellent.
What a resource.
I'm going to chime in too and say that Brittany gave a really technical and professional answer of how we, wrote the book. I'm going to tell
Do you feel there's a big but coming?
I'm going to tell you about the back end or the everyday thing. So I had a running list of things. I keep a running list of things of all the things I wish someone would have told me when I started freelancing, basically.
Wow.
And, if somebody had told me early on in my career that, Linda, you're going to have to start building a good and solid network because you're going to have questions down the line, you're going to need support, you're going to need advice, and you're going to want referrals. I wish somebody had told me that. So through the volunteer work that we've done for EFA with the Welcome Program and the questions that keep coming up over and over again for people that are just venturing into freelancing, a lot of people forget, let me take a step back here. A lot of people forget that just because you're going into freelancing doesn't mean you're not an experienced editor. You might have been a very experienced editor in-house somewhere, and then you've just decided to take your career in a different direction. So a lot of us had those same questions, and what I was finding is that I was going to 20 different places to get information and the information that's out there, it's not specifically geared towards editors. There's really not like a North Star for freelance editors to follow. So once we had this information and we were stacking so much of it, we figured, what if we could just put it into one place? Like, how much easier would that be for us to follow? And both Brittany and I love to write on the side. And like she said, we love, writing, and we're note takers. So we knew that if we did a book, we would want something that was practical and easy to follow and where we could jot down our thoughts. And for me, I'm the kind of person that keeps a journal, and I like to go back to it years later and measure my success, if you will. So the one reason it's structured, as a workbook, because we wanted the reader to come away with a plan that they could put into action, but also, 3 months down the road, 6 months down the road, go back and look at what you've written and see how far you've come.
And just to say, I think that's the book's strength, that it's actionable. It's not just it's not a piece of prose that you enjoy and then put down. There is stuff to do. There are stuff to do, which enables the reader to come up with their own workable solutions.
Definitely.
Thank you.
So you've created this fabulous thing. Perfect resource for editors. But what was it like when you were in the doing? Were you sailing with a fair wind the entire time, or were there some challenges along the way? Surely the latter. I'm sure it wasn't a perfect process, but I mean, please say it's the latter, or Louise is going to go into a big huff and wonder what she's doing wrong.
No, there were definitely challenges. Louise is not alone in that. For one, we were writing for editors. And so, there was always this sense that there was going to be extra scrutiny. And that was a bit nerve-wracking. We had to really sort of set that aside and just let ourselves do the work and say, okay, we're going to address that. It's an issue. It's something we have to face, but we're going to address it and, kind of set it aside while we did the writing. And it was really important that we deferred to the Chicago Manual of Style, which was the style guide that we used, rather than, giving way to our own idiosyncratic style preferences, because we didn't want anything to distract our readers from our message. As editors, we know that it can be really easy to get sidetracked when you're reading for pleasure or for professional development. you know, and you notice that comma placement, or
you were just trying to head off all these emails from readers at the past, weren't you? The messages that said, why have you put a comma here? That's not.
Yeah.
Another thing is that there were two of you, and so you potentially got two different styles there. And so if you want to bring together that sort of synchronicity, then it makes sense to defer to another professional style guide.
Right, and that was important to us, and definitely, you know, there were times when I would just thought maybe we could, you know, publish our style sheet also, so people would know that was intentional. You know,
such an editor thing
darling,
to do,
you're overthinking that.
But you know, it was really, that part of the process was kind of interesting for me, because there were definitely things that Linda and I had to, you know, we had personal preferences on, and we had to give way to Chicago. And our proofreader, Madeline Vasily, is wonderful. And it was so interesting, just the kind of conversations that we would have with her when, you know, we knew what we should do, but we didn't want to, you know. And so it was really an interesting experience and a dynamic being on that side of the editing divide in terms of being the author. And, you know, so anyhow, I guess I don't know if that answers the question, but yes, Louise, we had challenges too.
Yeah, I think so. Also, one of the challenges, because we're both full-time working, you know, freelance editors, is the amount of time that we had available to dedicate to this project. Because if we were writing the book, that meant we weren't otherwise using those billable hours. So, you know, we both have families. We both actually have a life when we're not editing. So, you know, we weren't writing the book in a vacuum. We weren't Bill Gates that could retreat to a cabin, you know, for a week and do this deep work. And no, we both had editing projects that were happening at the same time when we were writing the book. So it was important to, I think, really figure out a schedule, have goals that maybe they weren't set in stone, but we had goals that we knew we were trying to reach. And that made it more tangible and more motivating as well. But another challenge that I hadn't anticipated that I think is important to recognize is that we wanted to make sure that the book was accessible, and learning what accessible means was it was a learning curve. And fortunately, we were able to draw on the expertise of our own network and do the research that we needed to do to make sure that both the print book and the ebook were accessible as we could make them. And I'm going to defer to Brittany here, because she really went that extra mile. And I think she has a lot of knowledge that I think would be worth sharing about this part.
Well, please do, Brittany. I'd love to hear about that.
Oh, thank you. Well, you know, accessibility was really important to us from the start. We have such a wonderful, diverse community of editors, and especially when you're a freelance editor, there's already a lot of challenges to overcome, a sense of isolation sometimes. And, you know, you don't always feel like you're included, you're part of the community, because you know, I'm here in Georgia, and you know, Linda is in California, and Louise and Denise are, you know, over the ocean. And so we're spread everywhere, you know, so you don't always feel included. And I think that we did not want to add one more barrier between, you know, put one more barrier in front of our readers, in front of those editors who we're trying to support. So making the book, the workbook, as accessible as possible was very important to us. So we tried to be really comprehensive in how we thought about this. And we, like Linda said, we talked to a lot of wonderful editors that we know who have more experience in this area than we do, to kind of get us thinking in the right direction and give, you know, help us with resources. But we paid attention to things like the color contrast, like on the cover and even in the interior, and the way the worksheets are designed. You know, we paid attention to our font choices, to using alt text, both in the ebook and on our website, and trying to be very inclusive in our in-text examples and case studies. We wanted to, both by the content and by how we presented it, to kind of be just welcoming and to try to make things as comfortable and easy to access for everyone. So, and we even had an extra level of coding done to make the book particularly compatible for editors who use screen readers. So it really made us realize how much goes into accessibility and how many levels and different things you have to consider there are. But it was wonderful because we had, like I said, we had really great people that we could talk to and learn from. And I hope that the book is very accessible, but it's something that we're always open to learning more and improving on. But yeah, that was like Linda said, it was a lot for us to learn, but I hope that it is helpful.
Brittany and Linda, I hope that you and you will both come back and talk to us perhaps in the not too distant future, maybe a little bit more specifically about that, because I think it's for anybody thinking about going down the route of producing e-content, whether it's free or paid for, that there's more and more attention being paid now to these extra additional levels of accessibility input. I know that Book Machine have looked at this stuff several times on their blog. It would be lovely to, if you would come back at some stage and perhaps talk in more detail about accessibility of e-content. That would be really useful.
I think it's such an important topic because as many editors are, most editors have a website and they have images and they are creating content, and accessibility isn't necessarily front of mind when people are creating what they might consider to be quite small pieces of content. Maybe when they're writing a book they would, but not necessarily about things for their websites. And I think we should it should be front of mind really when we create anything. And I know I've certainly tried to become more aware of that with alt text for images, even on in social media posts and things like that. So definitely a topic that deserves its own separate conversation, I think.
In addition to trying to do this for our own book, we also have a place in the book where we speak directly to the reader to kind of because not everyone is maybe aware of the need for the accessible features, and so we did bring that up just to kind of, since we had this sort of platform, just to make it more part of the normal conversation, the normal consideration. So I hope that
it shouldn't be other, should it? It should just be like,
just
this is what we should be thinking about as the standard, in the same way we do a spell check and professional editing on the content.
Right.
So something I'm interested in is the collaborative aspect of this project, because I've done all my book writing on my own, and yet I discovered the power of collaboration when Denise and I began working on the podcast together. So we'll talk in a moment about the benefits of collaborating, but there are challenges too. How did you go about managing? I'm just decided to do, let's get rid of the difficult stuff first, and then we can talk about the nice things. How did you go about managing the dual aspect of authorship so that you were working efficiently and productively?
Well, I think that's a really good question, and I have a couple of different answers. One, I just thought to say this kind of on the technical side, because one of the things that we used was Dropbox, and I don't mean to be an advertisement, but there are other softwares you can use, but it's really great. Sending files back and forth was not going to work, and so we kind of synced up our cloud, as they say, so that we could really effortlessly work on things together and always, not lose files and things like that. So that just occurred to me. But the thing I really wanted to say in terms of managing that aspect of working together is to work efficiently and productively. I think the most important thing is that you pick a good partner.
Yeah.
And because, Linda and I had collaborated in the past, we were used to working together. We knew that we got along really well, like on a personal level, but we'd done a lot of intensive work in some of the volunteer positions that we had, and we were used to counting on each other, and we always knew that we could. And so for me, it's like I really couldn't imagine doing this with someone else because
how cute.
No, but it just has always felt very natural working with Linda. And I think that if I didn't have that, it would just be like, I can't even really imagine all of the issues that might come up. So I really would just say, if anyone else is thinking about collaborating on a book or a podcast or whatever it might be, making sure that it's someone that you work well with is very important.
Oh,
Yeah.
I so agree. Can I just chip in here and say, I mean, Denise and I feel exactly the same way, that having the right partner when you're both on the same page about what needs to be done to get that project, to keep it on schedule and to bring it to fruition is absolutely critical. It's easy to get together with another. It doesn't matter, you could be really good friends with someone and really respect them, but it wouldn't necessarily mean that you were that would make for a good book writing or podcast or blogging partnership. Having the same sort of working mindset and mindfulness towards each other, I really second that.
Yeah, I think for me there's two things. One is that having had Brittany agree to write a book with me was amazing. And I really look up to Brittany in so many different ways. So when she was like, yes, we should do this, I thought, okay, we've got this. But how I think for me too is so important knowing that I can count on her as an accomplice, because I have a lot of random crazy ideas that were, the sky is not the limit. And I know that I will just text Brittany and be like, hey, what if we did this? Like translating the book into Spanish. This is another thing that the project for this year is I really want to get our book into a Spanish audience, Spanish speaking audience. And so I know that in terms of challenges, like Brittany said, find somebody that shares your common goals, that shares your values, that your personalities really complement each other. And we have a lot of personal interests too. We both like chickens and farm life and chocolate and motorcycles. So we do share other things besides style guides that we like. And, there's also something to be said about appreciating each other as fellow human beings and respecting each other as authorities in the type of editing that we each do. We both edit in different genres and work with different types of clients. But we're also very mindful of each other's schedule and life and responsibilities. So I think that the challenges are always going to be there, but if you're smart about it and you have mutually agreed upon goals and a reasonable schedule that you're allowed to let fluctuate if need be, I think that's fine. But it was something that we both knew we could do together and that we were going to be, we were going to follow through with what we said we were going to do.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think that sounds remarkably familiar, doesn't it, Louise?
It does.
I'm seeing a lot of similarities with
not the chickens,
work.
If I'm honest.
Not the chickens, no.
Aww.
I think we maybe bond over gin a little bit more. I don't know.
Yeah. Gin.
Yeah.
Chocolate and motorcycles.
Yeah. So once you'd sort of got this framework and you'd mapped out how to manage your challenges, how did that sort of collaborative aspect help and support you guys?
So for me, I love writing and I can really get into the zone when I'm writing, but writing with a partner is just, to me, superb. So, I think when working with a partner ensures that, the work that I'm doing is going to be not only shared, but we're going to share the responsibilities and we're going to really benefit. And we do really benefit from each other's perspectives. So in terms of the collaboration aspect of this project, we created an outline. We had what we thought were going to be the main themes in the book. We split up who was going to write each chapter. We wrote them. Then I'd pass my chapter on to Brittany for review, or to let her, develop ideas further or trim down where needed, because I tend to get kind of wordy or use funny examples that might not suit everybody. So, but I also remember, like, I think one of my super tools in editing or writing is that I get stuck in places sometimes, especially if I'm writing late at night. I'm stuck in places that one sentence is just not coming together the way it should. Or maybe I've just been in a binge of writing all these ideas together, and I come to realize that what I was trying to say really isn't clear. So all it took was opening a comment box and saying, Brittany, what do I need to do here? Mm-hmm. Had there been like a life preserver emoji, I think I would have thrown that in there too, just so she knew that she needed to rescue me from that one paragraph. So, I think that was just really easy. And there's something else to say too about, trusting the work the other person is doing. When Brittany made corrections, I knew that whatever correction she was going to make was in my best interest, because she's really representing the reader to me. And if she's fixing something, and I'm just going to let both of you know that Brittany corrects with the most gentle and kind words ever, that you can't say no to any of her suggestions.
Oh, brilliant editing, but quite manipulative as well.
Yes, so it's I know she cares about my work and what my goals are, with writing and what I'm trying to do. So it's really a huge relief to know that someone has your back when you're writing, and that there's not only going to be another set of eyes, but those eyes are going to be attached to a soul and to a heart that's going to make my writing look great. So
yeah. Oh, doesn't that ring a bell, Denise? Like I feel so much the same, like just knowing that you've got a partner who's got your back, who's got other ideas, who's got a fresh perspective, who's there to validate, but also who's there to shoulder the responsibility. It's enormous. It's such a powerful thing, and so rewarding. And it's time saving, if you don't mind me saying so. Yeah. It's quicker to work when there's two of you, because you bring, like you said, two pairs of eyes, two hearts, two souls to the table.
Yeah, but that whole trust element is just, I don't think you can overstate how important that is when you're working collaboratively.
You can't hire that.
No, exactly.
No. So true.
Yeah, and that was one of the things in terms of working together, is that we have a really high level of trust in one another. And there were so many times where I just thought, that's key to having a successful collaboration. We trusted each other personally, but we also trusted each other professionally as editors. And, it was wonderful to have a partner who was a reality check, because like Linda said, sometimes you'll get so deep into an idea or, chasing an idea that you need that other person who has maybe a bit more clarity on it. And it was just really cool the way when we would get in those situations, it's like Linda would know exactly what I was trying to say, and she would have the distance to be able to say, okay, all I have to do is, change this bit here, and you're there. You just, but you get kind of into a corner with your writing sometimes. And then, but it was just also helpful to be able to work through ideas with someone who was working towards the same goal, but brought another perspective. And I really enjoyed that part of it too, because we were able to, sometimes you feel that, my perspective is so, it's such a product of my own experiences, am I adequately addressing how other people deal with this or how other people experience this? So that was a really great thing about having a partner.
Yeah.
Can I add something else, like totally off script here about this too, is I think it's important to recognize or to not let the ego get in the way, because I think when we're solo writers, it's just us. And so I think when you pull your ego out of projects like these and collaborations, and you really look towards the greater good or the mutually agreed upon goal, it it makes editing and, just fly. Everything goes so much smoother because it's just not personal. Whatever Brittany's correcting of my work, it's not personal. It's just business.
It's your joint project.
So,
and in effect, you're editing each other. I mean, that's, that's so it's, yeah.
I think also that whole thing about, like you mentioned there, Linda, about talking through things. It's if it's a solo project, you grind to a halt. How do you talk yourself out of it? But in the collaborative process, you can just have one conversation to talk something through, and it can completely invigorate you and give you a new perspective and get you moving again. And I think that's another really lovely thing to have when you've got that that relationship with somebody that you can work towards a mutual goal and help each other over different hurdles because of your different perspectives on things.
Yeah, and your different experiences, and your different genres and your writing styles. It's like 1 and 1 doesn't equal 2 in this situation. 1 + 1 doesn't equal 2 in these circumstances. You almost get 2.5. You're bigger than the sum of your whole. Do you know what I mean?
Right.
There's a phrase there. There's a phrase when you're bigger than
I'm right there with you on the metaphor, Louise.
Yes.
I love it, and I get it.
Shame I don't have the words to complete
bigger
it.
than the sum of its parts.
That's it. That's what I meant. That'll do. But it's so true. So true. So moving swiftly on. So what else did you enjoy about the book creation process? Did anything surprise you? Something perhaps you hadn't anticipated?
For me, it was, and I texted Brittany one day about this because I just felt like I was writing so fast and just enjoying it so much, and it came so naturally. And I would go, weeks later and not believe that that was me who had written that. And I would ask Brittany, did I write this part or did you write this part? And she was like, no, that was you. So I think just discovering that I did have a solid voice in my writing really helped, especially because I don't do a lot of business type writing. So it came pretty naturally when we were in the zone. And I texted Brittany one night. I said, are you having, this is what's happening to me. And Brittany corroborated that for her was the same thing, that it really came very naturally to be able to write on this topic. So that really, I think was positive. The other positive thing was being able to, to set specific dates by when we wanted to have certain things accomplished and accomplishing them. Maybe they weren't 100%, perfect, but they were pretty close to that. And when you're able to see how you're reaching those goals and when you're reaching those goals, it makes success feel more tangible.
That's an interesting point though, because when there's just, it can be quite hard to hold yourself accountable when you're just having a bit of a sofa day, right. like you just want a bit of a slouchy. Whereas when you've got a partner you're working with and you've got a schedule, yes, the goalposts can move, but you're more motivated because you don't want to let the other person down.
Right.
Yeah.
So when you've got two of you, that's what surprised me with how I'm much more, I feel I'm more accountable when I'm collaborating with Denise, because if I decide like I need to step back, that's fine. But if I decide I need to step back when actually I don't really need to step back, I just want to, then I'll be letting her down. And so I'm much more likely to be mindful of that it's not just about me. It's that ego thing again. It's about her too. So, yeah.
And I don't like to let Louise down, sorry, because I can be a bit of a procrastinator. And Louise sets me deadlines, and I don't miss my deadlines when Louise sets them because she frightens me a bit sometimes.
Yeah, on that train from Norfolk to Glasgow.
I know, right up there.
Oh yeah. Brittany, what about you?
I think that one thing that kind of surprised me and was really kind of also exciting was that, as we worked on the book and we would talk to different colleagues, whether we just, maybe we were asking them for their opinion, or maybe we were just, sharing things about the book or whatever it was. And it was really interesting to realize how many people, what a great network Linda and I each have, together, and that, you know, we just have so many wonderful people who are so supportive in all these different ways. So that was just that was really nice, to have an opportunity to really kind of realize that and appreciate it. And then the other thing that I think kind of was a bit, I don't know if it was surprising, but it was something I hadn't even really thought about, was how fun the cover design process was. I really, I like design and art and things like that. And so it was really, it was neat because on the one hand, we were trying to, you know, you have sort of a rationale for, you know, what you're trying to express on the book cover, but then at the same time, there's the aesthetic part of it. And so that was really fun. And it was an enjoyable part of it. And I still like the cover. Like, I wasn't sure if I was going to be like it at first and be like, oh, I can't stand that cover. But no, like, it makes me happy when I see it. So hopefully it makes other people happy too. But yeah, so that was kind of a fun thing.
It's another side of the publishing process, isn't it, as well? Because it's not just a, you know, I often pick up books because of how they look initially.
Yeah,
well,
exactly.
and I was gonna jump into that, not to get too technical, but I think when you're thinking about writing a book, and I mean, the cover is usually the most artsy part of the whole process sometimes, but you have to take a step back, and here's my business hat on, and think about what is consumer behavior like, and who's buying. How do people that buy books, how do they behave when they're picking up a book, you know, at a bookstore? What are they touching? How are they flipping it over? You know, are they skimming the pages? Do they look at the back, you know, at the interior back first, or the front cover first? So there is a little bit of a science to that I think needs to be considered. And we definitely considered that. You know, we looked at all the other colors of editing books that were on the market. So the cover in itself, I think, probably took about 2 or 3 months to develop, just because we were really studying market and consumer behavior and how we buy books, and how this isn't just a book for anybody, it's a book for editors. How do editors buy books? How are we scrutinizing, you know, the materials that we're choosing? So there was a lot of thought process that went into it, even though you can't really see it from just the cover.
Yeah. I mean, there's so many things to think about when you start writing a book beyond just the words on the page, isn't there? So if there's any editor that's inspired to start putting pen to paper now, and, you know, they want to write a book for editors, that we haven't put them off entirely, what advice do you have for them, or for anyone else who's thinking about writing a book for our community?
Well, first, I would say, yes, do write that book, because I love reading books by editors. It's really cool, because you just get so much insight. And I just really enjoy having a book that's written it's speaking specifically to me as an editor. But I would say it's really important to know the purpose of your book and who your audience is, because, you know, for us, those two things were really sort of our beacons, or our guiding lights, when it came to choosing what we were going to say, what our content was, to editing the content, you know, your style, your structure, all the way down to the choice of your words and your style guide. It was, you know, for Linda and I think that one of the reasons that this wasn't as stressful as it could have been is because we were just so focused on, okay, we knew our reader, we knew who we were writing this for. And so we would ask ourselves continually, you know, what is most important here for this reader? What do they need to know? And it made it really easy to just sort of, you know, trim out things that were maybe things we would like to say, but it was just going to cloud our message, or it wasn't going to give the reader what they needed. So if you can just really know what the purpose of your book is, and who the audience is, and then also who the audience isn't, and just give yourself permission to focus on that reader, I think it will make things much easier, and just feel like it's happening more naturally.
Yeah, Definitely. And can I just say that most of the stuff that we trimmed were stories I was telling that had nothing to do with the book, but that I just thought they were entertaining and funny and that I thought should be there, but we're going to do that for the comedy version of Networking for Editors. But no, I think, you can write 100,000 words really well and in a short amount of time. But if they don't serve the purpose of your book and your message isn't clear for the people that you're trying to reach, you're really veering off course. And like Brittany said, it's going to make the whole process longer and not as enjoyable. So I think you need to make a plan. You need to account for everything that needs to happen and things that might happen. So don't only think about the parts of the book that you need to write, but also what could be happening simultaneously. Do you need to start your cover design as you're writing? Just because you're going to have to be developing ideas. Do you need to start vetting editors or proofreaders and booking them months in advance so that you get the person that you want to work for your book? One of my biggest pet peeves about writing books and people that are thinking about, doing it independently is you need to have a book marketing plan, whatever that means to you, but there's tons of templates online and plans that you can follow, but you need to know that you're not going to start promoting that book after it comes out. You need to start promoting that book way in advance and letting people know that it's coming out. As well as, do you have a list of people who are going to read the book beforehand, before it comes out, to start giving you those reviews and creating the hype for it? So I think it's important to map out in detail what this book is going to be about, how you're going to write it, and all the steps that you need to take in between that might not be related to the writing in itself, and stick to the plan as much as you can.
And this is some of the stuff that we ask our authors and our clients to consider if we're working for independent authors. And so it really is a good reminder that when we're on the other side of the fence, we need to be practicing what we normally preach to people. So, don't write 100,000 words if actually what you can be, if the good stuff is only 50,000 words, that's how long the book needs to be. I spend a lot of my time trimming out fluff from what are really good stories, but there's sometimes there's just too many words for in each sentence, and so when we're writing our own books, we need to be prepared to apply the same principles that we ask our clients to. So look, you two, congratulations, both of you. It's such a fantastic achievement. But that aside, it's a tool that any editor, even one who's nervous about networking, can use to get their networking done, because you give them such a huge variety of ways to view networking. So congrats on creating the book, but what a book.
Yeah, absolutely. Such an achievement. So we'll put a link to the book in the show notes, so that if anyone listening wants to grab a copy or find out more about it, you can do so. So that's it for this week. Thank you so much, Brittany and Linda, for coming back to us. It's just been so lovely chatting to you again.
It's been a blast. Thank you.
Thank you so much for having us. This has been wonderful.
So we hope everyone listening has enjoyed the episode. You can rate, review and subscribe to us via Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or whichever platform you prefer.
Yes, thank you so much for listening. Now, if you'd like to help support the Editing Podcast, you can join our Patreon community for as little as £3 a month and get exclusive access to live Q&As with us for just a few pounds more.
We'd love to have you on board. If you're interested, just hop over to patreon.com/editing podcast. We'll include that link in the show notes too. So she's been Denise.
And she's been Louise. And they've been Brittany and Linda. Join us again soon. Bye.